Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for the UFC 277 main event for the women's bantamweight title. Julianna Peña defending her belt for the first time against the former queen of the division, Amanda Nunes. Okay, well, first of all, we've got to take into account what happened in the first fight, because Nunes, she looked very, very strong in the first round. You know, she knocked her down with a low kick, she hit her with a right hand and dropped her. She was on the floor dominating positions. She got tangled up a few times, which you know, it cut down on her offense, but she wasn't really in any danger throughout the first round. But then second round, she came out and started standing trading with Julianna Peña. And the difference between the two of them was the respect on Peña's side. You know, Peña's taking on someone that was able to stop Cyborg in the first round. She was smart enough to have the respect for the power coming in her direction, to not just be reckless with her punches. But on the other side, Amanda Nunes was fighting like she was going to knock her out any moment. She was taking too many risks. She was throwing big shots and she was grinning as she was walking forward. And then Peña started to keep walking her onto this jab, and it seemed to just drain her. Whether it was a confidence thing or whether it was actually physically hurting her, I don't know. But you could see over and over again, Nunes kept getting stung with this jab. And then she almost seemed to get more aggressive, and that's where Peña was able to capitalize, walked her onto her right hand, backed her up against the fence, took her down, and then choked her out with no hooks in as well, which is also something that's worth mentioning. Nunes, in my mind, she started very strong. She went into the second round expecting to be able to, you know, knock her out within the first minute. It didn't go her way, and then I don't know whether it was an emotional drain or that she just wasn't physically prepared to go into later rounds with Peña, but she just fell apart. I think we're going to see a very different version of Nunes this time around, but I also think we're going to see a different version of Peña, which makes it difficult to predict what's going to happen. I've done a breakdown show on this for BT, so make sure you check that out as well. But of course, this has been kicking around in my head for a few days now, and there are lots of interesting strands to consider. Okay, let's tailor the tape first before we get any further. So 12-4 for Julianna Peña, 21-5 for Amanda Nunes. 2-inch height advantage for Nunes, but the reach is the same. Higher striking output for Nunes, better striking accuracy, better striking defense, etc., etc. Takedown accuracy is about the same, around 54-55%. Takedown defense, of course, Nunes has got very good takedown defense at 82%. Peña, one of the reasons why her takedown defense is only at 22% is because she doesn't really mind being on the floor. She's a very scrappy, scrambly fighter, and this is one of the main reasons why she could potentially be a kryptonite for Nunes, because no matter whether she's losing the fight constantly, she's always fighting back. She can be constantly on the back foot and hitting and elbowing and attacking submissions and trying to scramble back to her feet. She's got this tenacity which a lot of fighters, they can't maintain when they're facing someone like Nunes. You know, you look at Ronda, like Nunes was calm for a short while until she started to land clean shots. She realized that Rousey didn't have anything back to give back, and then she just steamrolled her. You know, we saw the same thing from against Chris Cyborg. Hit her with a low kick and kind of triggered an exchange, and then backed up and was hitting her as she was moving on. Another beautiful performance. We've seen the spectrum of abilities from Nunes. But one thing we do know for sure is that strength-wise, power-wise, she comes out on top of all those exchanges against Peña, as long as she's fresh and she's not fatigued or hurt. That all starts to change, and this is where the tenacity and determination of Peña comes on. Nunes, when she starts to fade, she can start to unravel a little bit. You know, it's very difficult for her to regroup and fight her way back into the fight. Whereas that's kind of what Peña does all the time. You know, you watch her against McMahon, she did the same thing in that fight. You look at Amanda Nunes against McMahon, and she stopped her doing everything that she wanted to do and hurt her and, you know, dropped her and choked her out. McMahon was able to push Julianna Peña. She was able to hit her with some good shots. She was able to take her down. But then the tenacity and determination, as I said, of Peña, it got her into that third round where McMahon now no longer had any more fight in her. The other thing you have to consider as well is what it does to the confidence of Peña to know that she's got that finish over Nunes. You know, it's easy to visualize yourself beating someone if you've already beaten them. You know, you can watch it. You can pull that video up and you can watch it from 8 or 9 different angles and remind yourself how dominant you were in that fight, and also how well she withstood the first round. No matter what Nunes brings to the table in this fight, you've got to expect that Peña is going to feel like she's going to be able to absorb it and turn it back on Nunes in the later rounds. For Nunes, it's more about pacing herself, and I don't know whether I don't know what the emotion is coming back in to try and get your belt back. You know, she must be incredibly determined and feeling very focused. But then, you know, if the fight starts to slip away from her again, you know, if Peña catches her in a tight submission, is there a panic there because, you know, it's happening again? She might not get a belt back. There's a lot riding on this. There's a lot more pressure on Nunes' shoulders in this one than there was in the first one. I think in the first one, people kind of expected her to win, so she expected herself to win, and Peña was determined to prove everybody wrong. This time around, the pressure is on Nunes because people will still expect her to win, but she's up against someone that's beaten her once before now, and he's going to have that confidence from that prior victory. What else haven't I talked about? So see, Nunes, she's a very, very fast starter. So 21 victories on her record, 14 first rounders. 5 of them by submission, 60 seconds or less for 60 seconds or less for 5 of them. She's stopping people constantly. There's no wonder why her confidence was so high and why she was expecting to be able to knock Peña out in the second round. I just feel like she's got to regroup. She's got to deal with Peña as a new problem and not come in as the Amanda Nunes that stopped Cyborg and Ronda Rousey and had 5 title defenses in this division already. She needs to come in as the challenger, taking on the champion, and give her the respect that she deserves and account for this being a 5-round fight, because it's the toughness of Peña that keeps her in a lot of her fights. And if you go back through a lot of her wins, it's the toughness that got her through early trouble in those fights into the later rounds where she picked up the victory. Interesting. It's an interesting one. Enjoy the fight, and I'll see you next time.